Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of The Last Round, episode 85. I'm your co-host, Danny Z. You obviously can see my other co-host, Michael Shepard. If you're watching the video form of this podcast, still semi-quarantine, wouldn't you say, Mike? Or would you say it's kind of alleviated a little bit?
A little bit, until Gavin Newsom decided to wear the masks again, so maybe not.
For people who don't know, Gavin Newsom is the governor of California because we are based in California. So a little tidbit right there. But once again, thank you for listening, guys, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, watching on YouTube, or listening on Boxing Social's YouTube channel. We appreciate it. We appreciate you sticking with us, especially during these difficult times. But like you said, we're trying to bring you the content every single week. To get you guys through these trying times that the whole world is experiencing. And if you're watching the video form of this podcast at the moment, you could see who we have on. He's one of the most, at least to me and to Mike, he's one of the most entertaining boxing Twitters to follow online. Every time I read his opinion, I'm pretty entertained. Whether it's knowledgeable too, though. So, Mr. Rick Glaser is joining us here on the Last Round. Thank you for joining us, Rick. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. I've heard a lot about your show for a long time. I've seen it a couple times, and I'm glad that you've asked me on. And it took you to number 85 the last put me up. I'm glad to be here. It's like the guy that finally bought a Mercedes. He was age 65 for the first time. He looked at the car. He said, "You got the smallest Mercedes, the cheapest what happened? Hey, it's a Mercedes." I'm here.
Well, you just recently joined. I mean, I don't know how recently, but at least semi-recently, you joined pretty much the social media circles, especially boxing Twitter. So, that was really when, like, we knew about you in the boxing circles, but you're now more readily available, which I'm assuming is making it easier for people to reach out to you in terms of interviews, right?
Right. I have been on Facebook since 2009. I was on Twitter for a short time a bunch of years ago. And then Stephen Espinoza, I shouldn't say Stephen Espinoza, somebody hacked into me. The rumor was, but who knows if that's true or not. I re-entered the Twitter world on January 10th. Mike Coppinger, you're familiar with Mike?
Mm-hmm.
The writer, he told me set the Twitter account up. He actually talked me into it, for starters. And then he helped. And I was sort of like real leery about it going on again. He set it up. He sort of like force-fed me into it, if you know what I'm saying. And today I'd like to thank him for that. I've already got over 1,600 followers, almost 1,700 now, in less than 6 months. And it's going along pretty good. I've had to block a few LDBers and Haymon. When they start insulting you, okay, outright, either your knowledge. Nobody's ever called me stupid in my entire life. Believe that. And they insult your heritage, your skin color. The fact that you're married to a black woman, but they're black, but they're insulting me because I'm married to a black woman. I just don't. Okay, and most of them are African American, so it's sort of like comical, Anybody who knows my face and they're African American, they put words out of their mouth. They say, "Oh man, you stole a good one out from us." Well, I did. You get insulted by the Haymonites and the LDBCers, and it's sort of comical. They're a very radical bunch of they're not really boxing fans. They're more racist than they are boxing fans because they're in love with Haymon and anything he does. Okay, and it's sort of comical, you know. And it's a funny thing. I was a Don King guy from 2003 to 2016. I worked with Don hand in hand every day as an outside consultant to Don personally. And the only reason why I stopped was because I developed cancer. I found out I had it October 3rd of 2016. And then by the time I recovered 32 months later, Don was like, in quotes, semi-retirement and not doing much. Don and I do talk 3-4 times a week on the phone. We're still very good friends. Love Don dearly. But every time I say something good about Bob Arum and something bad about Haymon, they yell I'm a racist. But Don King's like a father to me. And then I worked with the man for 13 years. So I just, as soon as you have something bad to say about Al Haymon or good to say about Bob Arum, you're a racist motherfucker. Well, perfect.
So, Rick, like you just touched on, some of your background. But if you want to just give a brief overview, obviously a lot of the listeners that we have on this show are hardcore boxing fans, so a lot of them should know who you are. But for maybe any type of new listener that might be listening to this episode at this moment, can you just provide a brief overview of your background? I entered boxing in 1991. I've been boxing full time for 29 years. I started out in the first 6 months part time, and then the boxing business took my other business. I was a wholesale automobile dealer, and I left the car business, and boxing's been full time 6 months after I entered 1991. And I'm an international agent, broker, and consultant. My clients are anywhere from boxing promoters, TV networks around the world, fighters, managers, TV production companies, one reality show, TV, many media agencies around the world, and also many attorneys around the world. And other countries are called solicitors, barristers. We know them as attorneys and lawyers. I render all kinds of advice. I broker all deals, anywhere from fights themselves to sparring partners. I'm the largest supplier of sparring partners in the world for my entire boxing career now. And I'll tell you, people tend to bring me in when a deal's messed up, they're about to go to lawsuit, or it's already lawsuit, get settled. Just anything to do with white collar part of boxing. That's what I do. I'm not the kind of guy to go to gyms. I'm not the kind of guy to tell a trainer how to train a fighter. That's not my thing. My thing is white collar. I do know the science of boxing explicitly, but I tend to let the blue collar faction, as I call it, tend to their blue collar functions, and I tend to my white collar functions. So that's what I do. My clients have been anywhere. Don King has been a client of mine. Danny Green, who was the biggest fighter ever in the history of Australia, he was a client of mine. Lennox Lewis, I supplied all his sparring partners. Just a host of people. Right now, the biggest name I'm supplying sparring partners for right now is Daniel Dubois, the up and coming hot from the UK, from England, heavyweight contender. We'd call him a contender by now. I wouldn't call him a prospect anymore. And that's the biggest guy right now I'm supplying on a regular basis. Now, do I send sparring partners to Japan for Murata? Yes, couple, but that's not a regular account of mine. Where the Dubois people, I'd say all are sparring every fight now.
So, Rick, how did you start working with Don King? And I'm sure that must have been an eventful time. Obviously, you hear the good stories about Don, you hear the bad stories about Don.
How did I start dealing with Don? Don and I found each other because Don said to me when we first started, he says, "Rick, I knew I had to work with you. I hear your name 7 times a day." He just said, "I have to work. I knew I had to work with you." So Don gave me the opportunity starting in February. We had a meeting on February 18th, 2003 at the Caesar's Palace. We were there for the fights for when the big upset, Rafael Marquez defeated longtime world IBF bantamweight champ Timmy Austin. It was a night of upsets. Paulo Venezuela, who at the time, Ricardo Williams was the undefeated Olympian, and the next great thing supposedly, and that petered out that night. At that night, we went to a private dining room there for high rollers. Don's not a high roller, but he's a big shot, and so he surely qualified. We sat down, we had a meeting, and it was like, what can you do for me, and what can I do for you? And he told me what he could do for me, and I told him what I could do for him. Well, actually, I told him what I could do for him first. I think that was more important, what he wanted to know. So he told me what he could do for me besides just financially, in other words, and everything. He always lived up to be a man of his word. He treated me as a contemporary, not as a subordinate. When I flew with him, I flew in first class next to him. When he ate lobsters and steaks, I ate lobsters and steaks. When he was eating hot dogs that afternoon, I was eating a hot dog. He treated me as his equal. And that was very important to me, because I don't want to be treated like a subordinate just because a man is a higher status in boxing than I am, or anything like that, because, I've got my own great strong points, and so does he. And the fact that we actually were able to work together for such a nice long period of time, where we worked collectively for the both of us, was a great feeling. I had a little bit of a hiatus in there. Don allowed me to do something because he thought it'd be good for my profile. As I worked with Roy Jones for the Kawasaki show for 6 months in 2008, and it was supposed to be for 3 months, but the fight got postponed. So by the time it was rescheduled, it turned out to be like 6 months. So that was, I've been always with Don the whole time. To this day, if Don called me, I'd be there for him, obviously. We ended the professional relationship on a great note, no issues there. And we're, if I don't think at age 89, August 20th, he'll be 89. I don't think he's going to re-enter boxing on a full-time basis. I think we've seen the greatest of Don King. That was then. This is now.
Do you think Don gets bad press, Rick, because of the Mike Tyson?
Listen, Don gets the worst press ever. They never write good shit about him, but I can tell you hundreds of good stories about the guy. Hundreds. Okay, you don't have enough hours in a day to hear all the great stories. Just give you 3 quick examples. I'm in his office one day. The secretary brings in a letter. He didn't call her a secretary. He called it administrative. She called herself administrative assistant. I'm sorry. He called her a secretary. So she brings in a letter. Some reverend from Cleveland, his hometown, original hometown, because Don lives in Florida, and he lives in Boca Raton. At the time, he was living in Manilapan on the ocean. Now he moved to a private community in Boca. So anyways, Don gets a letter that some little old lady from the church needed $112,000 she was short to rebuild her house from a fire because she didn't have enough insurance. There wasn't even any question. Don calls up the controller on the internal phone. Get up here. Sends her a memo. Get these people out a check and overnight FedEx it. Just like that, $112,000. Okay? The press doesn't write that. The press doesn't even know about it. Okay? Then another example is he donated $500,000 for a new fire engine for 2 lame fire trucks in Deerfield Beach, where his corporate office was. They both needed they were old fire engines. They both needed new fire trucks, and they both needed new fire engines, and he bought them for $500,000, 2 new motors. Okay? You don't hear about this stuff. Okay? He was, let's put it this way to you. He was extremely generous for my wedding to my wife. Okay? Extremely. It's confidential, the figure. You guys would be shocked. Okay? One friend of mine, it was so much money, my friend says, I'm not shocked, I'm appalled. He said, why? Hardly anything. This is what the other person said. I have a great relationship. The difference with Don is, this is Don. Okay? Don's a street guy at heart. That's what he was. Don is about this loyalty, a trust and loyalty. If he trusts you and you're loyal to him and he trusts you, he'll go to the wall for you. Okay? His staff, okay, his executive vice president, this, that. They didn't want to hire me because they knew I would overrun them, that I'm too intimidating of a person, both physically and mentally. Okay.
Uh-oh. Rick, are you there? I think he kind of cut out for a second. He kind of froze up on us.
All that kind of stuff years ago. So it's one of those kind of situations where the best way to put it is that we have a lot in common. He understood me. I got indicted for racketeering. He spent time in prison. I was lucky enough I didn't spend time in prison. I was a first-time offender, and they gave me 5 years probation and $50,000 fine and, no cooperation. So it was good. It worked out for both of us. Don became a world icon, and I became me. So it all worked out well for both of us.
Now, Rick, you mentioned the whole racketeering.
I something wrong here. I can't hear you guys now.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Rick?
No.
We can see you. We can hear you.
No, let me log back on.
Okay, we'll be here. So, Mike, while we wait for Rick, hopefully to get his connection situated, I kind of hopefully he touched on it. He touched on the racketeering situation that he went through back in his past career, obviously. I think that's an interesting thing for boxing fans to learn about, especially because Don King especially was involved. And it's a sport of boxing. Don King is a central figure in the history of boxing. What do you think?
No, definitely. I think, when you talk about boxing in the Don King era where, Rick was, working alongside him, it's probably the peak of the boxing because of obviously all the heavyweights at the time. And, the old saying when
I came after that. I was 2003 to 2016. Don's peak was the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So I came right after that. I came after a lot of Don's sidekicks and contemporaries passed away. Al Braverman passed away. Eddie Mahfouz passed away. Peyton Shear was getting sick at the time. He later retired shortly thereafter. I became on. Don and I got together because he was lacking for a true boxing guy. There's a difference between being an executive in the boxing business and actually knowing the nuances of boxing in and out. And I know those nuances.
You can ask that question, Danny?
Yeah. So, before we lost you for a second there on your connection, Rick, you mentioned the situation you had with the whole racketeering situation and stuff. When that was happening to you in your career, what was your mindset, and what was Don King's mindset?
Well, I got indicted in 1989, pled guilty in 90. I didn't meet Don I didn't get in boxing till 91. By the time I met Don for the first time, it was like 99, and by the time I worked with him, it was 2003. There was no big deal. If I would have ratted on people, if I would have been like a federal witness or something like that, that would have been different. But he didn't have a problem. I stood up like a rock, and I'm a man. It's all there is to it. Do the crime, do the time. Lucky I didn't have to do any time, but I was willing to do that time. Actually, the judge noted that too. It was sort of funny. He says, "You're the kind of guy that wouldn't mind going to prison. You'd wear it as a badge of honor." He says, "Yes, Your Honor." But I got lucky. He didn't send me to prison.
Is there anything you would have done differently in that time frame in regards to that whole situation?
No, I hired the best lawyer. The best lawyer. He became a dear friend of mine. He was at my wedding. I go out with him socially to this day. I would have done nothing differently. Did what I did. I mean, I am what I am. I'm everything I appear to be. There's no like hidden agendas. There's no, I'm an open book. I mean, if I was to write a book, I'd have 400 chapters, maybe 500. So that's how I am. I can't help myself. I'm a very forthright guy, and people say, well, how, you were in a dishonest business. I said, I'm in a dishonest business now. It doesn't mean I'm dishonest. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
I consider myself one of the good guys. It was I'll tell you a great part of the story. Great story. In my case, the FBI erred greatly. When I originally started my case, they went to ask for bail, $500,000. They said I was violent and dangerous, settled all disputes and violence. Then when we went to the pre-trial hearing, we started out with the first time with the judge, because when I appeared in front of it was a magistrate for the bail hearing. So go in front of the judge for my case, and they said I was violent and dangerous to settle all disputes and violence. So my lawyer made a deal with the judge. Says, Your Honor, there were no victims here of any threats, no physical violence. Okay, fine. So let me put it this way. You can sentence, if they come up with one bona fide witness that will testify against my client that they were threatened or he physically harmed them in any way, any way. He says, you can put my client in jail for up to 5 years. Well, so they told the U.S. Attorney's Office that. They couldn't find one. He gave them 6 months. They couldn't find one witness that would testify to that. That's how I ended up getting the 5 years probation. So there were no victims. Did I charge them high interest rates? Did I extort people? Yeah, but my aura alone imposed everything. I didn't have to open up my mouth and tell them why they were here. They knew I was there. I mean, it wasn't exactly a community secret. If I showed up, it was to get paid. So it was good enough. But nobody said they were threatened. It was a wonderful thing.
Now, Rick, obviously touching on the business of boxing, and since that's kind of like your forte over the years, one of the attention-grabbing stories of the last week or two is the whole Ryan Garcia debacle. I think you said out a tweet recently saying that you had a lot of podcasting companies and everything reach out to you for interviews or get your opinion on that. Just to kind of give an overview, he signed a brand new agreement with Golden Boy Promotions sometime last year. And can you hear us, Rick? I think he kind of messed up on the connection. So we'll just hopefully he can jump back on. Maybe if he can jump on a computer. But Mike, as we wait for him, okay, I think we got him back. How we going? How we going, Rick? Can you hear us?
Yep, I can now.
Okay,
sometimes,
great.
Like you said, I don't know. I can't explain it.
Okay, it's all right. It's all right. We're doing it on the fly here. We understand. But as I mentioned, I was touching on the Ryan Garcia debacle, just because it is involving the business of boxing. He just signed a new agreement sometime last year with Golden Boy Promotions for reportedly
September, 2 fights into the deal.
Right. So obviously about the situation. You've been you sent out your opinions on Twitter. What's your take on that whole situation with Ryan Garcia?
Oscar is 1,000% unequivocally in the right. There are 2 fights into the deal that he called that Ryan Garcia told the press and tweeted, it's the greatest deal ever for a guy at my level, prospect, whatever he called himself then. And 2 fights later, he's getting ripped off. Okay, first of all, his lawyer, advisor, Lupe what's his name? Valencia says, we can't fight for that kind of money. He draws 10,000 people. Where are the 10,000 people? We're in the midst of a pandemic with no people, no sponsors, with exorbitant additional costs to a promoter, which is the COVID testing, procedures, and protocol, which Top Rank spent thousands and thousands and thousands of man hours on developing this so they could be the first out of the gate. And by the time Golden Boy does their show that weekend, Thompson Boxing does theirs, and PBC does theirs, Top Rank will be 18 dates already in front of everybody else back. So that just shows you what Top Rank's really all about. They are truly in business. Now, going back to the Ryan Garcia situation, Valencia and Ryan Garcia are clearly not taking account of the fact that we are in a pandemic with no people allowed and the additional costs for the COVID testing, the procedures and protocol, which need to be developed on a per promoter basis. And you also need to hire additional people to do that are health-oriented people, as Top Rank has done. So your costs are tremendous. I mean, I know what you're costing Top Rank. I'm not going to say, but you guys would be in shock if you knew what it cost them per show to pull these shows off. In shock. As far as the new additional costs, I'm not talking about the overall show costs. I'm talking about the COVID costs in relation to the testing procedures and protocols.
Rick, do you think it's Ryan's looking around and he's comparing himself to Shakur Stevenson, Devin Haney?
Wait, he might be. Those guys are Olympians and world champions. You're comparing, not you, but everybody's comparing. Ryan himself's comparing apples and oranges, if that's the case. One guy's a sitting world champion. One guy, an Olympian. Okay, Gervonta Davis, in his second division is champion now. He was 30, now he's 35. I mean, you're just talking about completely different scenarios. Not you, but as far as Ryan goes, okay. And if that's the case, so he can't compare himself to those guys, not at all. If Oscar offered him 250, that's what he should have taken. This is where everybody erred in that deal. Oscar may probably erred too. I'm going to say Valencia erred. Okay, because they're not thinking straight. What they should have done was, let's do this fight for X now. Then in September, be on the Canelo as a co-feature and get X and negotiate that. And then a third fight down the road, so like a 3-fight package over the next 6 months, something like that, or the next 7 months. That's what they should have done. Okay, and say, hey, I'll give you 250 this fight. I'll give you 400 for the next fight. And the next fight, I'll give you 500. No, that wasn't good enough for everybody. He's sitting there making zero, holding up his career, and he looks like an ingrate in front of millions of fans who don't make $200,000 a year, okay, who make $50,000 or $60,000 a year, or $40,000, and are currently unemployed. Okay, many are currently unemployed. So he looks like an ingrate. You can't do that. You can't drive around in a Ferrari, okay, play the big shot and look like an ingrate. You can drive around in the Ferrari, but be appreciative to how you got there. And he is not doing that. He's getting horrible advice, boxing professionally and also in public relations. Horrible, disgusting.
Rick, do you think that because obviously it seems like a pattern here from what boxing fans have seen when certain opponents of a certain level are provided to Ryan as a potential opponent, he seems to ask for more money. Do you think he doesn't have as much confidence as people say he does in his skills, so he wants to get paid more just in case he might lose to these higher level guys?
It's the pimp and hoe mentality. That's all it is. Okay? Oh, he wants you to do this. What? I want that. Oh no, he wants you to do that. Oh no, I want more. That's what it is. Come on. You know what I mean? That's what it is. In other words, I'll be with him for 20 minutes till he goes. I leave. He wants me 2 hours. I want more money. Same thing. It's no different than the pimp and hoe mentality.
So Rick,
Wait, guys, did I stun you with that one?
No,
I like the analogy.
It's a good stun. It was a good analogy. So the last time this happened last year, 2 fights ago, when the agreement was signed, Rick, I remember, and I was telling Mike about this a couple days ago, because Ryan Garcia is obviously in the Canelo camp. He's trained by Eddie Reynoso. And when this happened last year, Canelo was very vocal on social media about supporting Ryan and posting stuff in support, retweeting Ryan's tweets. This time, Canelo hasn't been doing that. And honestly, that's what I was looking for. And Canelo has been silent on that whole situation. Do you think that's on purpose, or do you think Canelo, maybe he's kind of sick of it?
Me about the mind state of Canelo, who I never met personally, never even been in public with or private with. So I can't tell you. It's not a good sign for Ryan, no matter what it is. That's for sure. But I don't know what his state of mind would be right now to do with in regards to this particular situation. I don't know the man that well just to talk about it in that regard.
So what do you think, Rick, is the most logical solution to get out of this mess between Golden Boy and Ryan at the moment?
They should have done a 3-fight deal. This fight, July 4th, September when Canelo fights, and then the next fight after that when Canelo doesn't fight. They should have done it. In other words, in the third fight being, if there's no people in the place, 250,000. If there's people in the place, then okay, then it's 400 or 450 or whatever. It's just they're basing everything on let's do this now. It's not let's do this now type of business. We got to look to see what's out there. We know what's out there now. We got to look to see what's out there in 2, 3, 4 months from now. And in the meantime, we don't have that answer. Baseball doesn't look like they're going to have a season. They just had a whole bunch of COVID virus breakouts. They can't get together on the money. And they're going to sit. So Ryan Garcia is sitting very nicely. He can drive around his Ferrari. He can go to McDonald's. Okay, bring his bag home, get out of his Ferrari, show him taking the McDonald's bag out of his Ferrari, going into his townhouse. Everything's great, wonderful. Okay, he can continue to do that and hit the bag for no purpose. We like that. That's very good. It's good thinking. Valencia is a putz. There you
go. Rick, Eddie Hearn from Matchroom Boxing did a recent interview with Boxing Social where he said he would like Matchroom to really take over boxing and trying to model the boxing on the UFC style where, all the fighters are under one brand and you could try to make, all the fights because you essentially own the rights to, the majority of the fighters. Do you think we'll ever see something like that where they buy up like Top Rank and PBC?
The only ones that got enough money to buy everybody out is Arum for sure and Eddie Hearn's father. Okay, no, okay, and Top Rank said, we could be for sale. They never made an offer. It's all hot air and bluster from Eddie. First of all, Eddie's done an unbelievable job in the UK. Fantastic, great promoter over there. His fights haven't done shit in America. They don't draw shit. Okay, and nothing. Okay, nothing he's done over here. And when you sign up fighters like Demetrius Andrade and you main event him, okay, on the zone, that tells you what he knows about American boxing. Practically zero. Because nobody in their right mind would have Demetrius Andrade as a main event in America in 2020. There's no purpose for it. He can't draw. He's boring. He turns people off. It just shows you what Eddie knows. Not a lot. He's a great promoter in England, in the UK, not in America so far. He's yet to prove that, and he's a long way from proving that, as far as I'm concerned.
So, Rick, in terms of Eddie Hearn's stable under Matchroom Boxing, especially the U.S. fighters he has, you mentioned Demetrius Andrade, having some issues, main eventing and stuff like that. Who, out of the stable that Matchroom has right now, to be in the United States, who should Eddie Hearn really rely on and put a rocket ship on to really elevate his business in Matchroom USA?
Devin Haney. That's it. He's an American. He's a great fighter. He's nice looking. He talks well. He can fight. He's like a young Mayweather, style wise. He's got some pizzazz. He's a classy kid. Nothing wrong with Devin Haney. You only have to pay him $1 million a fight. You don't have to pay him multi-millions. Other than that, he doesn't have fans America wants to see. That's all there is to it. Who does he have that America wants to see? Yeah, Joshua, but he fights over there. No other American he's got the people are beating the doors down for. Danny Jacobs is an excellent fighter, and he's a great B-side. He's a great GGG foil, Canelo foil. He's already played those games out. There's nothing there. He has nothing else that's American that people get excited about. I can't think of anybody else. Can you?
No, they got Mikey Garcia, but that's obviously more the Mexican fans.
Mikey Garcia is a free agent. Okay, who's ever putting up money, that's who he's fighting for. He's got the red high heels and short black skirt syndrome.
Rick, I'd love to get your opinion on. You mentioned the top rank fights in Las Vegas, and coming back now, we have Jarrell Miller, who's never officially served any type of ban. He's now been licensed by Nevada to fight on an upcoming top rank show.
Okay, what ban would he have served? Explain it to me.
Well, obviously, he didn't obviously serve any ban for testing positive from those 3 tests prior to the Anthony Joshua fight, but he was never licensed in.
Because Eddie Hearn made a mistake in America again. When he signed that contract, he should have had that Putz get licensed. If he would have got the guy get licensed, he would have been suspended. That's where they erred. Eddie erred. In the contract, it should have said, it's within 72 hours of this contract being signed, you must be licensed by the New York State Athletic Commission and be tested and licensed, or within 7 days or whatever, some kind of clause in there. What happened? Nothing. He wasn't licensed. Little slippage on Eddie's fault because he's trying to serve too many masters. Europe, Italy, the UK, Italy, United States, got shows. He can't do it. That's why Top Rank has 7 top executives around Bob. They can do it. That's why they got shows in Japan. That's why they got shows in the UK. That's why they got shows in the Kazakhstan coming up, because Top Rank can do it. They dwell out responsibility to people. Okay, fire away.
I was just going to say, from your experience, that's common practice to have that stated.
Of course it is. Yeah. It's common sense. What would be abnormal about common sense until it comes to Eddie Hearn?
Common sense isn't common, right?
Yeah. I mean, how you're going to have a fighter fight, okay, and you sign a contract, but you don't get him licensed. This is months down the road. This was 5 weeks out from the fighters, 6 weeks out from the fight. He failed the drug test. The contract is probably signed 2 months before that. So, I mean, what were they thinking? What were they doing over 2 months? What was he doing? Massaging the press like he always does? Not getting down the brass tacks, which is his business? Come on, guys. Do you really buy the fact that he shouldn't have been licensed, but he's going to fight for $6 million? Come on, guys. In a huge fight? Come on. This isn't an undercard fight where it doesn't matter if the guy failed. Okay, the guy failed. Undercard, he's out. Show goes on. No, the show's screwed up now. So there you go.
Rick, kind of rewind a little bit back into the Ryan situation. From a talent perspective, from your opinion, being in the business for as long as you have been,
he beats Gervonta Davis right now, this second. Okay, he does not beat Lomachenko. He may beat Teofimo, but he's not beating Devin Haney because of styles. I'm not saying he's not more exciting than Devin, okay, or fast, but Devin's got that slick style and knows how to move around the fighter and can get away from Ryan's artillery easy. I think Teofimo may be too strong at the moment and a little too polished for Garcia, but it's a war. Him and Teofimo with a war. I just wouldn't do the fight. I think he beats Haney. I think he beats Gervonta Davis right now. I think it's a different league altogether. I think Gervonta Davis is the weak link of those fighters.
What do you see in Gervonta Davis's game that isn't on par with somebody like Ryan or like a Devin Haney?
His condition's horrible. No matter what the weight, he's always overweight at the first time on the scale. 30 was, 35 he is now. He's just not a prudent athlete. Just not one of those type of guys. He's not a true pro. Just because
if he had that type,
just because you fight for money doesn't make you a true professional. There's more to it than that. Fire away.
Rick, what's your take on all the different belts that's coming out now? The WBC franchise, WBC Super, Gold, Frankincense, more.
Can I just shake my head and you'll get the answer? Come on. The only time there should be a franchise belt if the guy's bigger than boxing. Okay? Right. Like, give you an example would be Fury's bigger than the rest of the heavyweight division except for Joshua, and he's willing to fight him in a unification. What stands in the way? The WBC mandatory. So I would say that's where you bring in the franchise belt. You don't award franchise belts just like toilet paper. That's wrong. Okay, it's wrong. Canelo, you should franchise him only because he jumps around from weight class to weight class, 60, 68, 75. That's why you should franchise him. Other than that, no.
What about somebody like Lomachenko? Sorry, Mike. What about somebody like Lomachenko who was franchised?
Not big enough and doesn't fight for enough money to franchise. I don't agree with franchising him. He's not that popular.
Rick, working alongside, Don King for a long period of time, they say that the reason they have so many belts is because it gets more attention if there's a belt on the line. Have you ever seen any figures or, statistics that actually prove that?
No, not at all. I don't think there are any. I don't think there's any analytical in that area. What do I think? I think it's a bunch of bullshit. Okay. I'm going to show you something because you guys are a lot younger than me. I just turned 62, and I can tell by looking at you good-looking bastards that you guys are a lot younger. When I first started boxing, when I first started watching boxing in the 70s and then into the 80s before I was in the business, it was the champion and the challenger. Today, it's the champ and the opponent. That's the difference today. The best is not fighting the best challengers. They're fighting the weak link in the division. That's wrong.
That's true.
What do you think what do you think caused that change? Was it just money that over time?
Al Haymon. That's simple.
It's good. It's kind of pleased you touched on that because if one of your previous interviews I thought that you did was very interesting about when you spoke about Floyd Mayweather ducking Paul's, is it Spaffordora?
Yep.
Can you just tell us about that? Because obviously that was on a different interview that I listened to.
I was involved in 2003. He and 2004 he twice he turned down fights with Spaffordora that Arum offered him. And then he moved up to he moved up, and so did Spaffordora, and he won the BC belt. And we tried again, no. And then when he was a welterweight, Spaffordora was willing to go up from 140 to 47 to fight him. Mike Ekery, Spatafora's promoter, made an offer directly. He asked to make him an offer directly. Then he went and fought somebody else. I can't remember, and ran off and hid. It wasn't that Spaffordora was a better fighter overall. I can't say that. We don't know that. All I know is that Spaffordora started them, handled them, and Paul had a style that he could take whatever Floyd had, from my scientific standpoint of the sweet science. That Paul could take whatever Floyd had away from him by his feints, by Paul's feints, speed, his height, his reach, and his knowledge of the game and his science, which was equal or better than Floyd's. Okay, Floyd was a better combination puncher, but only threw 1 or 2, 3 punches at a time. Paul was a master at getting out of the way, and he would have slowed Floyd down, but Floyd wouldn't have been able to get off those 2, 3 punch combinations because Paul did all those little subtle things that slow a guy down: the feints, the deeks, pulling a guy out of position, spinning him around, going in the backside of him, stepping to the side at an angle. He did too many things right. Just like Joe Calzaghe did too many things right. Very hard to beat those kind of guys.
Rick, speaking about Floyd Mayweather, one topic that's been talked about in terms of from a business perspective from Floyd Mayweather was when he fought Oscar De La Hoya in, I believe, 2007. De La Hoya had an immediate rematch clause that he could exercise in their agreement leading up to the fight. But then Floyd Mayweather, retired following that fight, which I guess people say that kind of took that clause away because he retired. There wasn't anything about retirement in the contract. Can you kind of speak on that from your perspective?
It doesn't matter if there was a clause for retirement or not. It has no bearing on it. If a man does not want to get hit in the head any longer, no judges can compel him to do so. End of the story. Okay, when you go to court, okay, and you have a rematch clause and you're a champion and you lose your title, the judge cannot tell you have to fight that guy again. Okay? He can tell you that if you are to pursue your professional talents, you must fight this guy. Okay? If you do. That's the case in point right there. They can't tell you have to fight. They can, okay, but if you do fight, you have to fight that particular guy. So he retired. And then by that time, Floyd, Oscar fought Pacquiao, got played with, and quit on his stool, and that game was over.
Speaking about Pacquiao, Rick, I'm glad you mentioned that. Pacquiao obviously for most of his career was with Bob Arum's Top Rank, and only recently, the last few fights or so, he's been with your favorite person in the world, Al Haymon's PBC. But
fire away. Continue. I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to get your opinion on because Bob Arum and Top Rank have made it known that they want, and even Crawford has said, Terrence Crawford has made it said that they're
now Pacquiao is a free agent, so he's no longer with Haymon. He wasn't really with Haymon, by the way. He was not Haymon's advisor. Sean Gibbons has been his advisor. He's been with PBC for the last couple fights, but that his contract's basically up.
Mm-hmm. So what was it that, at least from your perspective, and even if you know the inside of the situation or not, that really deteriorated Pacquiao's relationship with Top Rank? It was around the Jeff Horn fight sometime after that.
Manny went to Australia, thought he got robbed, and blamed Bob. He didn't get robbed. There's a lot of people that thought Pacquiao won, including Teddy Atlas. I thought Horn won. There was no question in my mind that Horn. It's a funny thing about that fight. This is why I find that fight non-controversial, okay? Because each guy clearly won the rounds that they won. There was no, thinking twice about it. When that round was over, that guy won. When that guy around, that guy won. It wasn't I'm not sure, Clear who won the fight. In other words, each round. Okay? I had it clear for Horn. So I don't know what everybody else is watching, like Teddy Ellis. Many people around the world in the business thought that Horn won. But I love Teddy Atlas, but I don't see how he thought it was a robbery. Was it a close decision that could have went the other way? Yeah. But to me, it shouldn't have, because I was clear on who won how many rounds. 7-5.
Rick, for being in the game for as long as you have, what do you think, for us on the outside, just as fans, what's the biggest misconceptions of the boxing business?
That all fighters make a lot of money and have enough money to retire. That's the biggest one. The second biggest one is that when they go on certain networks where they make 15 or 20 grand, these fighters, and the people think they're making hundreds and hundreds of thousands, and that's not the case. Depends on what network you're on, how many people you draw, how much foreign TV is sold, depends on who you're fighting. There's so many factors that go into how much money you get for a fight. So that's the biggest thing. They think he had the title defense and he won the title at 2 defense. Oh, he's got enough money, got to retire. Depends what weight class you're in, who you fought. It depends. It depends what you meant to boxing. Some guys fight a whole bunch of times. They try to save their money, and they still got to get a job when they finish with boxing. There's quite a few of those guys around. So it's a never-ending battle. People think, oh, the fighter ended up broke. People robbed him. People that robbed him didn't make enough money to get robbed. That's all. It's that simple.
Rick, in terms of the current landscape of the sport of boxing right now, as compared to, let's just say the 80s and stuff, obviously at this point in time, especially with the financials being as high as they have been the last few years or so, do you see it getting more difficult in terms of making the big fights because of the money that's involved now and how it keeps increasing every year? Or do you see any end in sight?
Absolutely. I'll tell you 3 reasons. Well, COVID virus is one. The pandemic COVID virus thing is one. If we can't get fans in the building, that's going to be a real tough, because you can't do Tyson Fury and Wilder for the money they're going to be guaranteed from their rematch clauses, that to do that fight without the $17 million it did at the gate the last time. That would be impossible. But let me explain to you why. The reason why these unification bouts are being hard to make and the bigger fights are being hard to make is because Al Haymon is paying people way too much money to fight nobody. So there's not enough money to fight great fighters. Okay, now I'll give you the great fights. Now here's an example. When Duran fought 40 years ago yesterday, when Duran fought Sugar Ray Leonard, June 20th, 1980, the prior purse for Ray Leonard high was $1.5 million, and a $500,000 bonus was when he fought Wilfred Benitez. That was his highest thing, so $2 million. Duran's highest purse was $500,000 when he fought Palomino. Okay, so Leonard got 5 times his highest purse, including his signing bonus. Including his bonus from the Benitez fight, because he got a total of $2 million. I think it was $1.5 million fight, plus the $500,000. So that equals 5 times. Now, Duran, he got $500,000, which is previous before that was $300. But let's work with $500. He got 4 times as high as his previous purse, right? So they're able to make a fight like that, right? Haymon, he pays his guys millions to fight donkeys. So then there's not enough money to give him more to fight a tough fight and give him incentive to get in with real fighters, because he's paying them big money to fight donkeys. Okay? So where's the increase? So I'll give you an example. He's giving him $2 million to fight a donkey. Well, I can give you $2.5 million to fight this guy, because there's only so much money in the budget, right? He goes, no, I'm only getting $2 million to fight this guy. Why would I take a risky fight like that for another $500,000? That's the problem. That's why I've said that Al Haymon, it's one of the many reasons that Al Haymon is the ruination of professional boxing in America.
How does he make it work, Rick? How does he even make any money from the fights?
Peter to pay Paul. What he does is, on these smaller shows like the FS1 shows, he grabs money and puts it into the Fox 1 shows, and he's always robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's why. The PBC has never turned a profit. They lost $550 million in the first 30 months, okay? And since then, they've never turned a profit. Never. That tells you a lot.
Rick, you touched on earlier about being one of the major providers of sparring partners. Have you ever had anybody like a heavyweight or something there where people just don't want to spar them and you can't find anybody to go over?
That cure is called money. The remedy to cure that is called money. So they're going. I just got to negotiate. They won't go for X. Okay, well, you go for this. So that happens occasionally, not too often. The last time that happened was with Mike Tyson back in the day. That was the last time that happened. That was 25 years ago. Around then.
Without naming names, could you reveal a figure that somebody had to be paid to fight a heavy-handed fighter?
Mike Tyson, $2,000 a week back then. That's equivalent to $3,500 a week today.
Man.
I'd want more.
What's that?
I said I would want more.
Well, you don't get hit in the head to make a living, so of course you'd go out there.
Rick, as of right now, just from a fan perspective, because obviously you are in the business, but obviously at the heart of it, we're all fans of the sport, especially. Who are some of your favorite guys to watch in modern times right now?
Well, over the years, I got to go over the years. I loved Roberto Duran. I loved Hagler. I loved Sugar Ray Leonard, Larry Holmes, Lennox Lewis, Marco Antonio Barrera. I love watching Crawford. Just certain guys. I love watching Lomachenko now. Just certain guys that really have given 1,000%, or they have exceptional skill, or they're real classy. Alexis Arguello, he was a real classy guy. I liked watching him. Lennox Lewis, I liked watching him. He was a great fighter and very classy. Boom Boom Mancini, I liked watching because I know his family here in Buffalo, his cousins, and he was exciting to watch. Hector Camacho because he had that flair. But those are just a few of them that I enjoyed watching over the years. I enjoyed watching Chavez, the original Julio, as I call him, the original Julio Cesar Chavez. I thought he was an excellent fighter, and he made great fights, and he was what he was.
Ricky, you did an interview where you said Lennox Lewis and Larry Holmes are greater than Muhammad Ali.
Yes. Larry Holmes, the best of all. Forget about what happened when he was old and decrepit, Ali, because Holmes is old and decrepit when he fought Mike Tyson. I don't count those fights. Larry Holmes had the style to beat Ali. Not even a question in my mind. Okay, tremendous jab. Tremendous mental moxie, great recuperative powers, was down on the deck 3 times as a heavyweight and got up. Ernie Shavers was one. Ronaldo Snipes, Kevin Isaacs literally got up and fought back. Actually, and he basically won the rest of the rounds that he was knocked down in. In other words, he didn't win the rounds because of the knockdown, but the rest of the round when he got up, he won that portion of those rounds. I just thought he was the exceptional fighter, both classic ring ability and in his own right, super ring general. Ring IQ was super high, like Ali. Lennox Lewis, tremendous jab, tremendous power jab, huge right hand. Kept it simple. You didn't see him throw a lot of left hooks, a lot of uppercuts, not a lot of left hooks. I think Ali would have been in serious trouble. Don't forget the size difference now, guys.
Massive.
Matters big. Ali was tremendously Lennox Lewis was tremendously bigger than Ali. Listen, Joe Louis is the greatest fighter of all time. Lennox Lewis that Joe Louis and Lennox Lewis would stop him in 2 rounds because of the size difference. Not saying that Lewis wasn't a better fighter physically, as far as a skill level goes. But you're talking about different eras way, way far apart. Now, Ali is very close to Lennox Lewis time-wise. One stopped fighting basically in 80, let's just say, forget 81, 80, and the other guy came along in 92. So that's not that far apart. But he was so much bigger. That's big. And Lennox had very fast hands, and Lennox was a very smart fighter. People criticize Ali, Lennox Lewis way too much for the knockouts with Oliver McCall. First of all, the fight was stopped way too fast. And the second fight, he didn't train right and flew over at the last minute because of that stupid movie. But the truth of the matter is, think about this for one moment, okay? He revenged both defeats. And people say he didn't have a good chin. He was in a war with Ray Mercer, got hit in the chin plenty, stood up like a rock. Got hit by David Tua, stood up David Tua was a vicious puncher back then. Stood up like a rock. Stood up, got hit by Holyfield, especially in the second fight, a lot, stood up like a rock. Did he have a bad chin? I don't buy that he had a bad chin. Circumstantial.
Rick, is there any...
You're going too slow for me. Come on, guys. Pick it up.
Rick, is there any fighters that you worked with, either matchmaked or maybe even just saw, where you looked at them and you thought, you know what, that guy's going to be a world champion? And then they just kind of,
many times. I saw Barrera in 1994 before he became a world champ, and the guy looked like the next great thing. Barrera's one. Oscar's another. Oscar De La Hoya's another. There's many of them, actually. Many of them.
Was there many that you looked at who didn't? Like we always talk about on the show, Frankie Gomez was somebody that we saw for Golden Boy who was like, he's going to be the next big thing, but he beat.
Okay. Well, I'll tell. Now that you mentioned that, I'll tell you a funny story. Everybody thought Robin Blake back in 83, 84 was going to be the next great thing. I looked at my friend one day and I said to him, "This guy ain't shit. What the hell are they talking about?" And he went nowhere. So I had an idea long before I was in boxing, from good and bad. That's why I figured, I better enter the game and display my talents.
Rick, before we let you go, I kind of wanted to touch on one of the first names that you mentioned. We try to keep our shows to an hour for our listeners. They like that we stay to some type of.
I won't mention the guy's name, but I got one guy that does 3 hours at a shot with me. They start at 11 o'clock at night. They end at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then he cuts them up. Wow. Then he cuts them up into 3, 4, 5 different shows. So just.
That's pretty smart. But at the beginning of all this, you mentioned Showtime's sports president Steven Espinoza. Can you just tell us and our listeners what your issue is with the guy?
The next time he tells the truth, it'll be a historic moment in American history. Guy's got, as my friend calls it, raging bullshit. He lied about the pay-per-view numbers so bad. I told him, I even tweeted out to him back years ago. That's when I got hacked into. I said, listen, just to let you know, your company's a publicly held corporation. You're giving people false information. That's a violation of the SEC. I says, you can't lie by 20% or more on numbers. If not, that's considered fraud. The next thing I know, I was hacked into. What a coincidence.
Oh man. Well, Rick, well, Rick,
listen, when we go away today, I just want you to do 3 things for me. Okay, guys? Okay.
Sure.
I want to be invited back. I want to be good enough to be invited back again.
Absolutely.
I want you to send it to my cell phone, this clip here, so I can put it on my Twitter and my Facebook. You can send a link to me so I can put it up on my Facebook and my Twitter, so I can put it out there for you guys. Is that fair enough?
That sounds great.
All 3 done. Yep.
Okay, yeah, and we'll be invited back again. Okay. Mm-hmm. But you got to ask more questions. Come on, you got to find your way.
Well, when we do our first 3-hour show, Rick, we'll make sure you're the first inaugural guest on that. How about that?
They don't have to be for an hour. They have to be for 3. They can be in between. It don't matter. I'm here to. People ask me all the time, why am I on social media and so heavy? And why do I answer everybody's question and everything else like that, unless they get racist or they insult me? Why is because it's my way of giving back to boxing fans, because boxing's been great to me, and I want to do something for other people that nobody else is doing for other people, is answering everybody's questions. And boxing's been wonderful to me. It's afforded me to meet and know Don King, Bob Arum, and all the people I do know in boxing. I mean, if you look at my list of followers people are following me, they're some of they're Hall of Famers and icons in the business. And there's reasons for that. So I look at it that way, that this is my way of giving back to everybody, all the boxing fans that nobody's paid attention to over the years, and that they have questions to ask and nobody answers them. Because if you had to believe things that Dan Raphael said, he used to say in his chat, I mean, you sure can't bet on that shit. That's for sure.
Well, Rick, we appreciate it. And then you mentioned, where people can follow you. Go ahead and mention your social media handles if people want to know more about the Rick Glaser.
The main one is Twitter. It's at Real Rick Glaser, the numeral 1. So it's it's capital R-E-A-L, Rick, R-I-C-K, capital R, and then G-L-A-S-E-R, capital G, and the number 1 after. And I tweet boxing 24/7. There's no set hours. If it comes to my mind, or I hear something, or I feel people should know, I put it out there. When somebody dies, I don't wait till the next day. I love when people say to me, I already got the tweet out for hours, and there's 75 hits on somebody that died. And all of a sudden somebody called, did you hear such a thing? He says, he died again? What do you mean? I said, he died 6 hours ago. Where you been?
Well, why don't you explain to our listeners the hashtags that you used, like when somebody gets glazed, for example?
If somebody's conning, bullshitting, lying, or just doing something stupid, they get a glaze. It's hashtag, and then it's G-L-A-S-E. Okay, D, glazed. Okay, and that's the one hashtag. And then when I teach somebody about the business of boxing, or I put something that's informative about the business end of it, I put hashtag boxing 101. Okay, if it's about a certain party, Lou DiBella, I put hashtag scum sucking pig. So those are the three main hashtags that I use. The glaze one, that's a pretty good one. That happens several times a week. The 101 happens several times a week. The scum sucking pig, he's not that relevant in boxing anymore. So he doesn't get too many hashtags, the scum sucking pig, but that's what he warned, the scum sucking pig hashtag. No question about that.
Well, Rick, on that note and on that term, we appreciate your time coming on here on the last round, and we'll definitely have you back on. You're more than welcome to come on. We try to get people from all over the sport, ranging from boxing managers to boxing business personas to fighters to trainers. We try to get people from all aspects of the sport, whether it's one side of the opinion or other. Our job is just to give you guys a platform to let the boxing fans know your stories and your answers to all these certain questions that everybody wants to know.
Well, Danny and Michael, I appreciate you having me on. Please send that to my text me the link, and I'll put it up on both Facebook and Twitter. And I've been a pleasure being on your show. You've asked some great questions, and I hope to be on again in the near future. I'm always available. Boxing's my life and my passion, my life, and my occupation and my hobby all wrapped up in one. So I'm here to serve and helping you guys do your business in a business-like manner, and do the best you can. And you got to hit that subscriber button, and you got to do all that other good shit to help support Danny and Michael here, guys. You got to do that.
Well, we appreciate it, Rick. Anytime you want to come back on, when you feel you have to get something off your chest, you can just reach out to us, and then I'm sure we'll schedule you in as soon as possible.
Yeah, and if you have any pressing issues or anything like that, or something that comes up, or what something means or anything like that, I'm here to help you guys facilitate your efforts to further educate your followers and your boxing fans, and I'm always here to serve. It was great having me on today. I enjoyed it very much, and I look forward to being on your show again in the near future.
Awesome. You take care, Rick. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Rick Glaser, Mike. Rick Glaser, what'd you think of that?
Just kind of as we expected, I guess. Rick is, no holds barred, should we say. I always like the fact that, whether you agree with the opinion or not, Rick will give it to you in a black and white way. This is what I think and this is why. So, I just love people. I like people like that in general. So.
No, you're right. You're right. Like you said, whether you agree with somebody's opinion, his opinions or not, it's good to hear different sides, and there's some people who look at Floyd Mayweather. There's a lot of people who, didn't like the guy. They hated him. They hated his personality and stuff like that. And he even said it. What was that phrase he would say? He was like, whether you're paying to see me win or you're paying to see me lose, you're paying to see me, that's what happens, like I mentioned to Rick before we let him go. We try here at the last round to get people from all over the spectrum in the sport of boxing, from different sides of the coin, different sides of the opinions within the sport. So that way we can open our listeners to different aspects of the sport and everything. So, we try to do that. So I think we can always improve on different things, but why don't you say we at least try to do that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, obviously not blowing kind of like our own trumpet as such, but, I think we try to get as many guests as we can from all walks of, boxing, whether it be other media, to doctors, to cutmen, to fighters, to retired fighters, to managers, to matchmakers, everywhere, something we try to do a little bit different to, other podcasts. So I hope, the people that listen, that I hope they enjoy that. And if there's anybody that we've ever missed and they'd like to see, don't hesitate to, hit us up on any of our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, to give us a recommendation of somebody that we can hopefully try and get.
And what is our Twitter and Instagram social media handles, Mike?
Twitter and Instagram are both at The Last Round 12. And join us next week for episode 86, where we will have another guest.
Awesome. And then just before this, you also conducted an interview you did a bonus show, right? Right before this?
Yeah, just before this, I did one with ex-team GB amateur fighter Jordan Reynolds. It's good. A good interview, kind of going back from, starting boxing at a late age, having a crossroads between, staying with the boxing or turning to a life of crime, then turning pro. Obviously, how the coronavirus has hit, all the charity work that he's done. He talks about his mental health issues, when he was younger and how boxing helped him out on that. So quite an in-depth interview. Awesome. Well, guys, we appreciate you guys. If you guys started from the beginning of this and made it all the way to the end of this episode, we appreciate it. Whether you're going to work in the morning, you're coming back home from work, or you're just at home hanging out listening to this, or maybe you're in the gym listening to this, however you're listening to this, we obviously appreciate it, and we appreciate the support that you guys give us each and every week here at The Last Round. But like Mike said, we'll be back next week with hopefully somebody lined up. I think we have a couple people who reached out that we're considering to scheduling him in with the next couple of weeks. So hopefully we throw you guys some of your favorites over the next several weeks here at The Last Round. But once again, big thanks to Mr. Rick Glaser. Follow him on Twitter at Real Rick Glaser. Even if you don't follow him, it's worth some time to check out his tweets sometimes, just to read through them. They're very, like I said, they're very entertaining. And you might learn a thing or two. You might not like his opinion, you might love his opinion, but he knows a lot. He's been in the business for a long time. He's obviously been connected to a lot of important people within the sport. So it's interesting to hear from a perspective such as his. But wrapping up here, for my co-host Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.